Makakasama natin ngayon ang basketball vlogger na si Chinor Hoops fan, Adrian D. AD, welcome to The Score.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Na naman tayo.
Oo nga eh.
Pero syempre, Adrian, may bago tayong kasama, si Migs Bustos.
Of course.
Kanina nga, sobrang matunog ang usapan ng bench points sa pagitan ng Cleveland and Golden State, kung saan gumawa ng 45 bench points ang kupunan ni Steve Kerr, samantalang 10 puntos lamang ang nagawa ng Cleveland Cavaliers bench points. Nagulat ka ba sa pinakita ng tinatawag na the others ng Golden State Warriors, the likes of Livingston, Barnes, Iguodala?
On one hand, nisip ko na a lot of people are also thinking this, na baka i-start nila si Andre Iguodala right from the start, mag-def lineup sila, because that's what they used to win the series last year. Pero apparently, kay Steve Kerr, he prefers that continuity na kung anong ginawa nila sa regular season, yan pa rin gagawin nila. And we saw that his bench rewarded him for that. Na we were able to see Barbosa have a great game. Of course, as mentioned, Sean Livingston had a great game. So, parang tinutuloy lang nila yung ginawa nila sa regular season, and it really paid off for him in this game.
Well, do you think, Adrian, since Andre Iguodala is starting off the bench, will Steve Kerr adjust further down the series na baka mamaya i-start na si Andre Iguodala further down the road?
Siguro the possibility of that coming to play is if the Cavaliers get up to another lead in the series, diba? Because that's what they did to sort of change things around. For me, we know that Coach Kerr is sort of like a creature of habit. Kung ano nangyayari, he'll keep going with that until he needs to change it.
He adapts.
So he adapts, as he said. So I don't think right now, when they're up 1-0, hindi pa niya gagawin yun. But if mangyari yung nangyari last year na they were down 2-1, baka tsaka na lang nila ipapalit si
Migs, nabanggit ni Adrian yung salitang adapt. Talking about Steve Kerr. What about Tyronn Lue? In his first game as a head coach in the finals, tinanong nga ni TJ Manoto, ating kasama, kay Gary Payton before going live, ano ang gagawin ng Cleveland para bantayan si Stephen Curry? So I'm gonna ask you the same thing. How did Cleveland, with the game plan of Tyronn Lue, guard Stephen Curry, and did this work? Because Stephen Curry didn't really go off in this game.
So you saw a bunch of double teams. You saw a lot of the guys switch on to him, as what the Thunder were doing sa previous series. And you know, we often talk about healthy ba si Stephen Curry, 100% pa siya, and all that. In this game, you know, he looked not as explosive as the previous game against the Thunder, pero you know, part of that is fatigue siguro, and part of that, I think, for me personally, is that alam niya na his teammates could get it done. He didn't have to really exert that effort, and you know, he had that really long rest on the bench in the fourth quarter, and when pumasok na siya, he hit the clutch three-pointer to really put the dagger into the Cavs. So I think for him, he's not really that worried about going off for a lot of points. Tsaka na lang, he's a guy who goes by the flow. So I think that's what his game plan is for them.
Well, you know, Adrian, I think the Cavs did a good job on Thompson and Curry. So right now, what do you think is the X factor between the matchups? Not necessarily a player, but where do you think magkakaroon ng big difference down the series?
Curious also sa Cavs if they're going to start hitting three-pointers, because when you look at their past against the Detroit Pistons, against the Atlanta Hawks, and then somewhat against the Toronto Raptors, three-point shooting team sila. They're actually taking more than the Golden State Warriors in the playoffs. So in this game, hindi natin yun nakita. In fact, Channing Frye, who was one of their best three-point shooters, 5 minutes lang inilaro niya kanina. So we want to see that adjustment if Tyronn Lue says, you know, we have to speed up the pace, we have to take more three-pointers. We'll see that siguro in Game 2 and maybe even when they go back to Cleveland.
Pero Adrian, hindi ba ito ang specialty ng Warriors, yung three-point shooting? Kaya bang sabayan ng Cleveland ang three-point shooting ng Golden State?
Yun yung interesting, because when you looked at how the Thunder played in the last series of the Warriors, they pushed the pace. Even though they weren't taking a lot of three-pointers, they were really trying to make it a fast-paced game because they had more athletes that they thought they could out-athlete yung Golden State Warriors. Pero with the Cavs, you know, they have LeBron James, who's really explosive. They have Kyrie Irving. Pero because they don't have a lot of other guys, like especially athletic big men, they have Tristan Thompson, alam natin si Kevin Love, medyo slow siya.
Not as fast as the bigs of
more
the Dubs,
plodding, diba? So they couldn't push the pace as much as they would want compared to earlier in the Eastern Conference playoff series. Nakita nga natin na the Cavs were walking it up, daming isolation plays actually. So siguro Coach Lue might want to consider going back to that strategy later in the series.
Well, how do you defend you know, how do you defend like the likes of Livingston, the Barbosas, the Iguodalas? Because Stephen Curry, you took them out already. But right now, they produce so much, 45 bench points. So how do you adjust coming into game 2?
Siguro may element din na the Cavs have to play smarter, especially guys like Irving. Because if you watch it kanina, Irving lost a lot of guys on defense. He was often caught ball watching and he didn't keep track of his man. Marami na yung backdoor cuts that the Warriors are able to exploit for baskets. So part of that is communication. Because if you watch, the Cavs would shout out, "Uy, bantayan mo si Blah," but they weren't fast enough to get to that guy. So that adjustment needs to be made.
I want to ask you something about the others of Cleveland. Because their big three got theirs. 66 points for Irving, Love, and James combined. But the rest of the team, 23. Ito ba ang epekto ng depensa ng Golden State Warriors? Or did they get a little bit gun-shy, like J.R. Smith, who only took 3 attempts in this game?
Siguro it's partly gun-shy, it's partly, alam na natin, kung reserve player ka of the road team, you usually have a worse game on the road. But I think part of it then, for me, was the rotation that Coach Lou did. If you look at the previous series, he had a lineup of LeBron James plus 4 bench guys, Fry, Richard Jefferson, Iman Shumpert, and Matthew Dellavedova. And that was such an explosive lineup. It hit a lot of 3-pointers. For them, parang yan yung def lineup ng Cavs eh. And he barely used it kanina. So, if I were Coach Lou and nakita ko na Irving's not getting it done, Love is struggling, I would throw that lineup out there just to see what would happen.
Well, you know, Adrian, we've seen all over social media and Facebook and Twitter when James was really, you know, talagang kinakanya niya. Diba, minsan nag-ISO plays din itong si Kyrie Irving. Hindi na nga umiikot doon sa death lineup na sinasabi natin. Can you comment on what happened? Bakit nag-result to one-on-one plays itong Cavs?
I think siguro for James, yun yung ginagawa niya last finals eh. And parang he really is used to carrying the team by himself. Last season, dahil sa injuries, ginawa niya yun. But this time, siguro, parang instinct lang sa kanya na, okay, if my guys are not hitting shots, nakita ko, I have to be the one to take over. And for Irving, that was always his flaw na before LeBron James came over, people were saying he's such a isolation-heavy player. And siguro he hasn't really adjusted in a crunch time moment na if I really need to get a basket, should I just drive recklessly into the heart of the defense or can I set up a teammate? Because if you remember, he only played 1 game sa finals last year. He's not really used to this pressure yet.
So if you're LeBron James, going into game number 2, anong sasabihin mo to rally the troops para maitabla ang serye pabalik sa Cleveland?
Siguro if I'm LeBron, I point back to last series now. You know, we won one at Oracle and then we won the next one at Cleveland pa. So parang you can point to that as a rallying cry na, look guys, defense was able to win it for us last finals. Kaya naman natin to. We're supposed to be better because we're a more complete team now compared to last time. So siguro if I'm James, that's what I want to harp on, na complete na tayo eh.
Well, before we go, Adrian, predictions for this final series. I know you're a GSW guy. Nothing has changed.
Well, syempre after game 1, you know, it's been medyo nagbago na eh. Coming into game 1, para medyo 50-50 pa tayo. But right now, fearless forecast.
I'm still pretty confident in my prediction of Warriors in 6 because I still think na makita mo isang game na ang galing ni LeBron James, you maybe get 1 game na sobrang galing ni Kyrie Irving. But I think beyond that, the Warriors simply have all the answers. And after that really hard series against the Oklahoma City Thunder, for me, they looked really relaxed kanina playing against the Cavs. Parang, oy, it's not as hard as the previous series. And I think that will really keep up their spirits throughout these playoffs.
Yeah, they kind of looked refreshed after that grueling series against the OKC Thunder.
Now, looking forward to game number 2, Monday.
Monday.
And, we'll talk to you again soon. Adrian D. Chinoy Hoops fan, thank you for coming here to the Score.
Adrian.
No problem.
For more sports updates, keep watching The Score. And don't forget to subscribe.